It was my dream, it was my journey until it wasn't.
Welcome to Work in Progress, where I sit down with other creative freelancers and entrepreneurs and get the inside scoop on what working for yourself can really look like. Hi guys, I am here today with one of my besties, Coy. I just wanted to start a little YouTube series because I'm obsessed with people's journeys. I'm obsessed with everything from how you got started to the messy middle to where you are now. And I just wanted to invite Coy as my first person to have a conversation with, really to just talk about our journeys, where we've been, where we're going.
All the things.
All the things. So, welcome.
Yes,
I'm
thank
so happy
you.
to have you.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I'm just so proud of you too. I'm so excited.
I want to really start from, well, we'll call it the beginning, but I think for the beginning, for the context of this whole series, is kind of college, early 20s.
Yeah.
Just because I think that that's like when most people start to form an idea of like what the rest of their life is going to look like, you know? And so I think thinking back to like those days, walk me through like where you were in your early 20s and kind of like what you thought you were going to be doing.
Yeah. Wow. What a time. Early 20s. I mean, I was in college.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to school at University of North Texas, and initially I started as a photography major, and I made it 3 years in the program, got cut on my third year from the photo program.
They cut people?
Yeah. So
oh my gosh.
I remember going to the office and like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? They were like, you have a bunch of ceramics credits, so you could do that. I was like, okay, let's do that. It sounds great.
Like you really, you literally didn't at that point like ever think that you were going to be doing ceramics? Like
No,
you were like, I'm going to be a photographer.
All. Yes. I wanted to be a photographer on the East Coast and just be like super cool, calm, collected, just like
that is
doing photography.
So funny. And I really would never describe as the East Coast as cool, calm, and collected, but cute that you thought that.
It was my dream. It was my journey until it wasn't.
Okay, so you pivoted and you had to be, not had to be, but like based on like trying to get out of school on time, whatever, you're like, okay, fuck, I have to be a ceramics major because I've taken a few classes. Yeah,
and art education. So I did both, which led me into teaching.
You're in college, you're a photography major. They have these critiques. You didn't make the cut.
Right.
I'm sure that was like obviously kind of devastating too, because when you're like you know, 20 years old and you think like, oh, you have it all figured out and like you're taking these classes and it's this major, then it kind of sounds like the program was like a little cutthroat.
It was a little rough, but we made it.
For people that don't know, UNT is like a really good art school.
Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of off the radar, but Nora Jones went there and like it's really known for like its music and arts program. So it is a pretty like...
It's like prestigious in its
own right, like, right? You're like, fuck, I have to pivot. I'm going to guess I'll just do like ceramics and art education because I'm assuming like me and a lot of other people, you're like, I can't keep paying for this and I don't know what to do. And so I'm just like, what's the quickest way for me to like wrap this chapter up?
Wrap it up, but also like still be kind of like aligned and happy. And so that was kind of
like the quickest solution,
yes,
right?
Okay, I would say that.
You graduate college, you have a degree in art education and ceramics, right?
Right.
And you're obviously living in like the Dallas area.
Yeah. So that's where I went to school. And then I ended up applying to a bunch of teaching positions, got one in Austin and was like, great, moving to Austin.
So those of you who don't know, we met in Austin. I had a brief stint in Austin. Okay. What age are you when you start teaching?
I was like 22-ish age. Yeah.
Doesn't that feel crazy to think that like they were, like you had a real ass job at 22?
I was in charge of children at 22, which was crazy.
You obviously moved to a new city.
Right.
You get this job, you're a teacher, which for anyone that doesn't know Coy, like you being a teacher is actually like is very on brand for you because I feel 100%. Like you are such a, at least for me, you're such a sounding board, such a good guide, right? I
appreciate that.
And I feel like you know how to explain things and like articulate things and make things feel fun.
Wow.
Obviously, you know, you had this vision of being like this glamorous East Coast photographer and now you're an art teacher in Central Texas. Right?
Which sounds so different, but it really is aligned. But yes,
no,
for sure.
It totally is. You're in your early 20s. You're working at school. Like what's happening in this period of your life?
I am just trying to figure it out. I'm thinking this is kind of my path.
Like, did you, at this point when you're working at the school, like, did you think, okay, cool, this is forever now? Like, I've made this decision and I'm like on this path of being a teacher. Like, did you think like upward mobility or like, I don't know what did you think that like trajectory looked like?
Yeah, I feel like what's crazy is I had this feeling of I was going to do this forever, but I also had this feeling of like stunted. I didn't feel like there was a lot of growth. It was like you kind of do the same thing every year. You just like switch out the students. I feel like that was kind of where I was like, okay, like I don't know what this conversation is going to look like, you know, in 10 years, 5 years, or even next year. But hopefully, you know, we can kind of stick with the path. We actually did meet when I had one of my side hustles, like cater waitering back in the day.
We both kind of crossed paths in our mid-20s. I think I was 25, 26.
Yeah.
You know, we both had full-time jobs. Like, so I was working a full-time corporate tech job or a fashion company. She's working as a teacher. We're both kind of like trying to start these little side hustles, A, to have extra money because they didn't pay well.
At all.
Our full-time jobs didn't pay well. And B, I think just like not even at the time, at least for me, like I didn't know what that was even going to lead to, right? Like I was just like, I'm not happy in this corporate job. I'm not making enough money.
Right.
I'm starting to kind of take on these little side projects on the side.
Yeah, just to like dip toes and like see kind of what works or if something works a little bit better than like the corporate or like the teaching. But I do remember meeting you, and I do remember just being so inspired when you were like, yeah, this is just not it. I'm moving to LA. I'm going to start my own thing. I'm going to freelance and kind of like take myself seriously. And I honestly think you doing that actually might have like lit something in me to like really believe in myself too.
But I feel like before that, like that you could even make that trajectory, because I feel like you jumped a little bit, like some shit went down with your job, like, right? Like, and you know, you don't have to go into obviously any crazy detail of it, but I think it's really important for people to understand that like a lot of the things that happen in our careers and our lives, whether it be job loss or breakup or something like that, they do help you kind of start to move the needle or pivot in a different direction. So I think it is really important that you talk about that.
Okay. So yes, I ended up losing my job after 4-ish years. And so it was pretty devastating. I didn't know what I was going to do after that. But again, I feel like even in my life, I'd felt I wasn't particularly going to stay somewhere for so long and retire from like point A to point B and do the typical, like again,
Life
30,
thing.
40, 50 years at a company. I think it's just like when I started meeting people and having all of this in the works, right? Of losing the job, but also still feeling really inspired and still feeling like, you know, this isn't it. I think there was a point where I thought it was, but then honestly, after losing my job, that's when I started my brand. So
you had taught for 4 years, 4.5 years, whatever. Obviously, you know, you lose that job. That's kind of like is devastating for you, but also like kind of awakens. Door opening. You're doing these side hustles of catering. You're trying to like get some other things moving just to like keep some cash flow going, meet some new people, whatever. And then you kind of have this light bulb moment that wasn't ever going to be it for you. It didn't provide enough opportunity. You have such a big spirit and like, you know, you don't need those like glass ceilings to tell you that like, okay, cool. Well, yeah, I'm going to get my pension from the school district and like whatever. Like I think when I think about that now about you, I'm like, obviously that was never going to happen.
That couldn't work.
But at the time it's like, you know, you're like, I have a stable job and I'm like doing this cool, cute, creative thing. And it's like, again, sort of adjacent to like what you always thought you were going to do is something with creativity.
Right.
You lose your job. You're like, okay, I'm going to like start this little fledgling brand, right? What were like the first things you kind of did to start it? And like, what were some of like the products? Because you've kind of morphed a lot over time.
I've definitely done a lot of morphing. I remember after losing the job, I kind of wanted to just dial back and think about like what was making me happy. I knew I wanted to do ceramics. I just knew I didn't have the funds to fund that project. So I went specifically to like earrings and jewelry, and I was making earrings and jewelry. And the plan was to make so much and do so many markets to then fund my ceramics, which actually is what happened. So that was incredible.
You had to start small to be able to like get enough money to then like roll that into something larger. So were you just like making jewelry out of your apartment? Like what was that, you know?
I was making it out of my house at the time, and I was like doing kind of like found object jewelry for a while, which was kind of embarrassing now, but, you know, we did what we had to
start
do
somewhere, you know. And I think that also is like another point, the momentum of it all, right? Like I, you know, have my like Abby-isms and like my, I feel like my like North Star is like done is better than perfect. You're better off just like doing something and getting it done and keeping it going, even if it's like not at like your taste level or your skill level yet, right? Like, because I think all kinds of creative people, like I'm always looking to like the greats. Like you're
Right.
looking to whoever in your industry is like the top of their game.
Right.
And so it's like, you know that you have this really good taste.
Right.
Like obviously you've studied it in school and you have this awareness of like all these people that have done these things. And you're
Right.
like, I'm over here like making trash into earrings.
And I enjoyed it, and people enjoyed it. And so I think that's kind of what I started to latch onto, was just like the reception rather than like my perception of what I was doing. And again, I just feel like I had really great friends and really great community and really great people that just like kept cheering me on, and also inspiring me to just continue to do the thing. So I did segue from jewelry making to ceramics full time. And even then,
What year?
That was around 2018, 19.
Yeah.
Because I actually went back to teaching for 1 year because COVID. So like I was like, there's no way I can teach online art. It was just too much.
Too much. So it's COVID. The Coy collection at its fledgling stage is like really rolling up. You're making jewelry. You're kind of, actually, I purchased some of her jewelry as an early investor in the brand. And I remember, because you were still living in Austin at the time, and I remember like ordering stuff during COVID. And you were starting to make like small ceramic pieces. Because I think I got like a jewelry dish and you were making some cute faces and some little like.
That was like discovering. I was really trying to figure out what that looked like, because I'd been in the teaching space for so long and didn't really have an avenue to do ceramics. And so this was kind of my like awakening into ceramic, which ended up being the Coy collection, which is so cool.
Yes, you're done teaching. The Coy collection's really ramping up.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's when you really hit your stride?
I feel like I didn't understand for the first couple years, to be honest. I don't feel like I even like took in what was going on.
As COVID dialed up and as people, you know, were obviously at home, they're more aware of everything that's going on. Like people were just like online shopping and supporting Black owned businesses and doing all these things, which was obviously so great at your like kind of first real year of being like, that's like your actual business. Like there's no teaching anymore. There's no side hustles anymore. It's like, this is what you're focusing on. And it really did take off. But as it took off, like really you became known for her signature being the smiley
mugs. Yes. And I think even when I'm saying like, I really don't think I even had time to even understand what was happening, because there was like the first night I had 0 orders, and then the next night I had 300. So then it was like, I have to make 300 mugs in my kitchen and they need to be shipped out and people are going to want their pieces, and then more orders are coming in. So there was months where I had to shut my website down. Like I couldn't take any more, but just with that, it was ramping up so quickly that again, I didn't even have the mental space to even digest
like what was going on. Well, you eventually got like a studio space and had employees and all that stuff. So like, okay, you know, you're kind of riding the wave. The business just absolutely skyrockets up. Your orders are like through the roof. You're like at a capacity you never even imagined. Can't even really meet that capacity at this point because you're like, okay, I gotta shut down my website, gotta like do whatever. You get to your peak, you get a studio space, right? And you get employees, and then you kind of like found your rhythm. I feel like you were doing drops, you know, kind of like at one point, did you feel like confident enough to be like, okay, I'm gonna get a studio space, I can hire employees, like all the while you're also like a social media personality at this point.
So it kind of rose, and the studio ended up flooding a bunch of times because it was built incorrectly. So that kind of was the downfall of that. And then I was also in a really long-term relationship that ended up ending as well. And
that was like happening simultaneously.
So
you're like, cool,
we're at
my
the peak.
Space is fucking flooding. And like your relationship is experiencing this hardship, ending in a breakup.
Ending in a breakup. And I remember it was the day that my lease for my space, they were letting me out of it, and I was out of the lease for my apartment post-breakup. Were ending at the same time, same day.
That's like serendipitous.
So it was insanely serendipitous. So I was like, I have to believe in a new chapter. And so I decided to move to LA with some friends. Like we randomly were talking on the phone, just like, hey, I kind of want to move to LA. And she's like, okay, let's do it. And so I just moved with a couple of friends. We just packed everything up, sold most of it, and packed the rest.
Okay, so you know, you start your business in 2019. It like really peaks in 2020. You grow a lot in 2021. In 2022, like after issues with the studio, and going through this breakup. You're like, fuck it, I'm moving to LA.
Right.
What had you imagined that next chapter looking like?
Next chapter in LA, I wanted that to just look like kind of dialing back and building the brand more for me rather than like the story of being in Austin and things like that, because I feel like that chapter kind of had closed. So kind of trying new things, more collaborations. And so yeah, then I moved here. I really wanted to explore those things and like wholesale and see about getting a new studio space. But yeah, just kind of figuring those things out.
So obviously, you know, everybody's journey is such a roller coaster, especially when you're a creative entrepreneur, when you're doing your own thing, when you're not going on like that standard trajectory, like you were talking about. Like, obviously, you're kind of going to the Wild West and like, okay, so, you know, you had this kind of peak of starting your business and that was fun and like you experimental and then you're kind of figuring it out and then it takes off again and then it kind of comes down again. Then you get the studio space and the employees and then it comes back down again. Then you're kind of starting from the ground in LA and like working your way up. And I feel like you're still kind of on that upward swing of your roller coaster. So like, you know, walk us through like what you're excited about right now and like what that journey looks like for you. Because I think a lot of people think that like once they start that thing, you committed to becoming a ceramicist and had wild commercial success. I mean, you had brand partnerships with Microsoft and Instagram and you're showing, you know, doing pottery collabs with like really great brands like Teva and Teva. Sorry, I'm so sorry, it's Teva. And like Great Jones and all these fun companies that are like not only heritage brands, but like in the kind of cool millennial space. Then it's like, you know, you're kind of have this reset. And I feel like now it's cool to see like you are still constantly evolving and that you don't have, just because you like picked that lane and that journey to pursue and you've had wild success doesn't mean you necessarily have to stay on that nor want to. And so
now what?
Speak to that. Now what?
I am just still figuring it out. I feel like I've decided that 2026 is going to be my gap year. I don't know if I even told you about this, but essentially I'm going where the wind takes me. I'm kind of traveling. I'm really just kind of like discovering who I am as a person to just really like solidify the foundation just for me. Because I think, you know, with all of these wild successes and like highs and lows, I feel like I've kind of been just surviving for the most part. And I'm like, they're very cool, the things that I feel like I've accomplished and stuff. But I think for me, I enjoy kind of like some peace and a little bit less overhead and just like really enjoying doing the work of ceramics. And so this year I'm just traveling around and really just like trying to discover who I am. And then I do plan to kind of re-enter my business in 2027. Haven't decided. And again, that's the point of the gap year. I'm really just like trying to discover what I want that to look like with a loose plan, because I think I had these really rigid plans. I had these really rigid ideas of like, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this. And then those things don't go to plan. And so just kind of rediscovering what it looks like the ultimate pivot, but also for it not to feel so black and white, if that makes sense.
It's all a gray area. Okay, so I feel like a lot of people could benefit from a pep talk from you. If you're talking to someone who's in it and they've like experienced these highs and lows and they're kind of at a turning point in their journey, how would you encourage them to hold on?
So I actually saw this thing this morning and I feel like it kind of wrapped up that thought for me. It's just like everything is temporary. The highs are temporary, the lows are temporary, everything is temporary. So like you just making it through, but also again, kind of where I'm stemming from my gap year is like having your guiding energy be aligned. So then you're able to navigate those temporary spaces. The biggest thing is to really reconnect to your own self and your own personal enjoyment journey, no matter how crazy it is. I mean, I've been through a lot. I have a lot of different interests that aren't, you know, always aesthetic and things like that. I literally posted me eating Fritos on IG and I was like, yep, first post of 2026. Love this. I just want to be me. So,
well, I think that is like such an important point to like maybe end on is that when you're pursuing creative endeavors, when you're pursuing entrepreneurial things, especially like in this era of 2026 and this, you know, crazy like digital landscape, the opportunities have opened up and they're endless. And I think it can feel overwhelming, but I think at the core, what I love about you is, and like what I take so to heart from our conversations and what I think a lot of people can stand to hear or be reminded of is that like authenticity is your like North Star. And I think that when we are so bombarded with like all these opportunities that you could do, at the end of the day, like coming back to yourself
silencing the noise
important, because when you can live in that like authenticity, whatever you produce, whatever avenue you choose to pursue to make money or to create or to put out into the world, I feel like it ends up being wildly more successful if you just stay true to
and
yourself.
aligned for you.
Yeah. If you just stay true to yourself, then if you try to fit into the mold of like what people think you should do and or like what is like in vogue at the time.
Right. I agree. I love
I'm so proud of you.
Girl, proud of you. So happy to be here and supporting you as well. I'm very happy.
If you enjoy hearing conversations with creatives, just regular people on their journey, entrepreneurial life or otherwise, I'm going to be talking to my friends within the creative space, and I would love for you guys to follow along and join our journey.